Imagine stealing a loaf of bread and facing a punishment so brutal it'd haunt your nightmares for years. Or whispering a forbidden idea and waking up in chains, your fate sealed by a crowd thirsty for justice. In the Middle Ages, crimes we'd shrug off today could lead to horrors that make modern prisons look like a vacation. From petty theft to whispering heresy, medieval society had a playbook of unthinkable punishments that'll leave you speechless. Stick with me as we uncover the shocking crimes and their jaw-dropping consequences in a world where justice was as ruthless as the streets. What's the harshest punishment you've ever heard of? Drop it in the comments. I'm curious. Let's step into 14th century England, where survival was tough, and breaking the rules could cost you everything. Start with theft. Something as simple as snatching a chicken from a market stall. Sounds minor, right? Not back then. Stealing food or goods worth more than a few pennies could land you at the gallows. Picture this: a muddy village square, a creaking wooden scaffold, and a crowd jeering as a noose tightens around a trembling thief's neck. Hanging was the go-to for thieves, and it wasn't quick or clean. Ropes were crude, and executioners weren't always skilled, so you might dangle, gasping for agonizing minutes. But here's the wild part. If you were a repeat offender, they'd up the ante. Your hand could be chopped off, branded with a hot iron, or worse. Public humiliation in the stocks, where neighbors pelted you with rotten vegetables, or worse. The message was clear. Steal, and you'd pay dearly. Could you handle a week in the stocks with a crowd throwing mud at your face? Share your thoughts below. Now let's talk about a crime that hit even closer to home. Poaching. In medieval Europe, forests were the king's playground, teeming with deer and boar reserved for noble hunts. If a starving peasant dared to snare a rabbit to feed his family, he was stealing from the crown itself. The punishment? Brutal. Poachers faced blinding, hot irons pressed into their eyes, or mutilation, like losing an ear or nose. Some were strung up in the forest as a warning, their bodies left to rot where they'd trespassed. Nobles didn't mess around. Their game was worth more than a peasant's life. But here's the kicker. Poaching wasn't just about hunger. Some bold souls sold illegal venison on the black market, risking everything for a few coins. Imagine sneaking through a dark forest, knowing one wrong step could cost you your sight. What's the riskiest thing you've done for a meal? Let me know in the comments. Shifting gears, let's dive into a crime that could unravel entire communities: arson. Setting fire to a neighbor's barn or a lord's manor wasn't just property damage, it was an attack on survival. Wooden villages burned fast, and a single spark could wipe out homes, crops, and livestock. Arsonists faced one of the most terrifying punishments: burning at the stake. Picture a wooden pyre, flames licking higher as a crowd watches in grim silence. The church often got involved, claiming arson was a sin against God's order. But here's what's chilling. Sometimes the accused didn't even start the fire. False accusations were common, especially during feuds or land disputes. One enemy's lie and you're tied to a stake praying for a quick end. Makes you wonder, how would you defend yourself in a world where gossip could kill? Drop your answer below. Let's get darker with a crime that sent shivers through medieval society. Heresy. Questioning the church's teachings or dabbling in unorthodox beliefs could brand you a heretic. This wasn't just a religious issue, it was a threat to the social order. Heretics faced excommunication, banishment, or, most infamously, burning alive. The Inquisition, especially in places like France and Spain, turned heresy trials into public spectacles. Accused heretics were interrogated, often under torture, to confess or name others. Imagine being dragged to a stone chamber, knowing every word could save or doom you. If convicted, you'd face a pyre in the town square, your screams drowned by chants of justice. But here's the twist. Some heretics were ordinary folks, caught up in rumors or misquoted sermons. Could an innocent slip of the tongue cost you everything? What's a belief you'd stand up for, no matter the cost? Share it in the comments. Now, let's explore a crime that feels straight out of a thriller. Counterfeiting. Forging coins or tampering with the king's currency was high treason, a direct attack on royal authority. Money was power, and medieval economies were fragile. Counterfeiters caught clipping silver from coins or casting fakes faced gruesome ends. One common punishment was boiling alive. Yes, boiling. Picture a massive cauldron in a public square, water bubbling as the criminal is lowered in, their cries echoing through the crowd. In England, counterfeiters might also be drawn and quartered, tied to horses, pulled apart, and disemboweled while still alive. The goal wasn't just punishment, it was terror, a warning to anyone tempted to mess with the crown's coin. But here's the crazy part. Some counterfeiters were skilled artisans, creating near-perfect fakes that circulated for years. Imagine the thrill of outsmarting the king. Would you take the risk? Let me know below. Let's talk about a crime that hit women hardest. Witchcraft. In the late Middle Ages, fear of witches swept Europe, fueled by superstition and religious zeal. A woman accused of casting spells, cursing crops, or even talking to animals could face a witch trial. These weren't fair hearings. Evidence was flimsy, often based on hearsay or spectral visions. Punishment varied by region, but burning at the stake was common, especially in Germany and Scotland. Before that, accused witches endured torture like the strappado, where they were hoisted by their arms, weights tied to their feet, until they confessed. The hysteria was so intense that entire villages turned on neighbors, accusing widows or healers to settle scores. Here's the haunting truth. Many witches were just women who knew too much. Herbalists, midwives, or anyone who didn't fit in. Could you stay silent in a world hunting for witches? What's a superstition you've heard that sounds medieval? Drop it in the comments. Shifting to the battlefield, let's look at desertion. Medieval armies relied on loyalty, and abandoning your post was a betrayal of king, comrades, and God. Deserters faced swift, brutal justice. If caught, you might be flogged until your back was raw, branded with a hot iron, or executed by hanging or beheading. In some armies, deserters were forced to run the gauntlet, running between rows of soldiers who beat them with sticks or swords. The message was clear: run, and you'll wish you'd faced the enemy instead. But here's what's wild. Some deserters fled not from cowardice but from starvation or unpaid wages. Imagine marching for months, hungry and freezing, only to face death for wanting to live. Would you stay loyal or make a break for it? Share your choice below. Let's explore a crime that rocked the elite. Treason. Plotting against the king or aiding his enemies was the ultimate betrayal. Traitors faced the most elaborate punishments designed to erase their legacy. In England, high treason meant being hanged, drawn, and quartered. You'd be dragged to the execution site, hanged until near death, then cut down, disemboweled, and chopped into pieces, your remains displayed across the kingdom. Women convicted of treason, like plotting against the crown, were often burned to avoid public indecency. The spectacle was meant to terrify, and it worked. Crowds flocked to watch. But here's the twist. Treason trials were often rigged. Political rivals or jealous courtiers could frame you with forged letters or paid witnesses. Imagine being a noble, one step from the throne, only to lose it all to a lie. What's the biggest betrayal you've heard of in history? Let me know in the comments. Now, let's touch on a crime that feels oddly modern. Slander. Spreading lies about someone's honor, say, accusing a merchant of cheating or a lady of infidelity, could land you in hot water. In medieval courts, slander was a serious offense, especially in tight-knit communities where reputation was everything. Punishments ranged from fines to public shaming. You might be forced to retract your words in church, wearing a white sheet, or parade through town with a liar's sign. In extreme cases, your tongue could be cut out. Talk about silencing gossip. The goal was to restore honor, but it often fueled feuds instead. Here's the fascinating part. Slander cases reveal how much medieval people valued trust, even in a brutal world. Could you keep your cool if someone trashed your name in public? What's a rumor you've had to shut down? Drop it below. Let's wrap this up with a crime that shook entire towns: rioting. When peasants or townsfolk rose up over taxes, famine, or corrupt lords, authorities cracked down hard. Ringleaders faced execution, often by beheading or hanging, their heads spiked on city gates as a warning. Lesser rioters might be whipped, imprisoned, or banished, their families left destitute. Riots were rare but explosive, like the Peasants' Revolt of 1381 in England, where thousands stormed London, only to be slaughtered when the rebellion collapsed. The Crown saw riots as chaos incarnate, a threat to God's order. But here's the human side. Most rioters were desperate, pushed to the edge by hunger or injustice. Imagine joining a crowd knowing you might not come home. Would you fight for what's right, even if it meant death? Share your thoughts in the comments. We've just walked through a medieval world where crimes, from stealing a chicken to plotting against the king, led to punishments so unthinkable they'd make your skin crawl. Thieves dangled from gallows, heretics burned in town squares, and traitors were torn apart, all to keep a fragile society in line. But here's the real kicker. This wasn't just about justice. It was about fear, control, and survival, in a world where one wrong move could end you. These stories aren't just history. They're a mirror showing how far we've come, and how thin the line between order and chaos really is. So, here's your challenge. Think about the harshest rule you've ever faced, and imagine it enforced medieval style. How would you fare? Drop your answer in the comments and let's keep this conversation going. If this journey through medieval justice blew your mind, hit that like button, share this video with your history-loving friends, and subscribe for more dives into the past. Trust me, the next one's going to be even wilder. Think torture devices that'll haunt your dreams. What medieval crime or punishment shocked you the most? Let me know below and let's unravel more of history's darkest secrets together.